Welcome, everyone. Dr. Thor here, and it's time for Gnosis. Well, I want to bring to attention here the backstory of Art Bell and the usual problems that we run into every time we investigate everything. Because there doesn't seem to be any independent, courageous people, and certainly nobody with any money that puts into anything. So, all the rich movie stars and everything else, well, they're not really funding much of any value. Certainly, I don't know of them, and if anybody does, let me know. I'll report on that too. So, as usual, absolutely nothing is going on there. You read certain informational books on people, and there's always sketchy of how they are survived. But almost all of them are coming from some military background, and they're being paid directly, indirectly, in all sorts of ways. Those few people who aren't are private researchers. Well, they're still connected to the military and to corporations that turn their screws, hold them by the throat, and control them 100%. So there's just nothing really happening out there unless there's some sort of independent person that does things. And this is very rare because they're always hooked up somewhere. And the people using these services don't seem to be paying much for them. But one of the problems is that nobody in any of these fields are businessmen. They don't know how to run an organization and generate money for their research and to make a good living and to provide services for the public. They apparently don't know how to do any of that. And they refuse to come out and talk about anything they write books, they make a few pennies, whatever. Somehow they're getting paid somewhere, and it would be interesting to know how parapsychologists survive. How does Jeffrey Mishlove, Dean Radin, etc. survive? Now, they're head of organizations. Dean Radin, I believe, is the head of some organization, which I'm assuming is paying them. Now, where they get their money from, donations, whatever it is, who knows? But, all this is coming to a quick end as all of these people get older and older. But Art Bell is an interesting case. Art Bell had a talk show, as far as I understand, for many years, because I used to listen to it. One of these late-night talk shows that particularly people that work at night listen to. It was a political talk show. Now, I actually was on the Art Bell show before he went big time on his Friday night show, which he would do political talk all week, and then on Friday nights he would devote the entire show to something metaphysical. And he did this for quite some time. He just didn't start off with the show that we know of. Now, what has been reported now by others, and particularly Angela Thompson Smith, the famous remote viewer who's active even today, is the fact that she directly worked for Robert Bigelow, who sponsored Art Bell's alternative show. Now, I don't know when, it's a little confusing here with the facts, but he put the money into sponsoring him to do this show, paid, I guess, whatever the bills are to keep everything running, and I don't know, obviously Bell was paid some, and Angela got all the guests, which are the usual criminal group of government disinformation agents that somehow people think are real. But she did this for quite some time, or I should say for, I don't know how long. I think he only sponsored the show for about a year, and it was a weekly show, not a nightly show. But Art Bell was doing this, and then he finally, and I'm not sure, this may have been another show while he was doing his other one, which was run by some sort of regular radio company. But the bottom line is the radio company was there previously, and he was a radio commentator in a political vein. I believe he had a typical childish conservative viewpoint. And he would do this show. And of course, it was a big show in terms of the fact that it had a large reach over the United States. But it was a political talk show. Once this caught on, I'm assuming something was going on while he was doing this Friday show. But the Friday show got more and more popular. And I was on that show for an entire, I don't know, it was 3 hours for that show, or more than that. I don't remember. It was over 25 years ago. So, this was getting more and more popular, and what happened is eventually, because of support from these other people and what was going on, that he decided to convert over to all of that. But as we know, this is a murky path. Bigelow is heavily connected to those typical Confederates. And this whole plot to move that he decided after a fairly short period of time, I don't know if it was a year or so, he was bored with it, there was no good guess, and he no longer wanted to support it. Well, of course, it was already launched. The market was created, the money was put into it, and a capable broadcaster who knew how to manipulate the broadcasting systems and how to get on the air, Art Bell, was able to get the show and keep it going. But Art Bell really had no background, was poorly read. This is really an ex-Navy guy who was in communications and knew a little bit about radios. I mean, really, that's his background. The point is, other than that, he doesn't really have any qualifications or radio. He has a fairly decent voice. In terms of his political opinions, when I went on there before all of this, it was basically being roasted for not being a Christian and how much he was a Christian. That was the attitude, and of course that show can be dug up in different places. I may have been on there for 5 hours, now I think about it, but I'm not sure how long the show was. It was a very long overnight show. So the whole idea is that this then turned into that show where he brought on basically all the people that the government wants to hear from. Ed Dames, who started that Heaven's Gates problem with aliens invading and we're all going to defoliate the earth. I mean, Ed Dames, Mr. Army man, Colonel, I believe, another guy, was quite wacko. And his ex-wife talked about how all he thought about was aliens and how they were invading. Which, of course, this was talked about 30 years ago. I guess, as so many of these alien incidences, they have very slow ships. I think they have 56 Chevys, man, and they don't work too good, and they're still in space. Keep breaking down. So the whole idea is that the problems with these things are unbelievable. So that never happened. He gets on all the other government people. You name them, they're there. All the same remote viewers, all the same goofballs, even a mentally ill person into time travel he had on several times. So, they put on these people that are completely and totally worthless, and Art Bell knew absolutely nothing. I didn't really come off that he was into anything seriously. Other than the fantastic person and interviewer and great intelligence, Bill Jenkins from Los Angeles, who actually was involved in the process of trying to change things, supporting people to get technologies out, helping get out the word about free energy. What did Art Bell do? Nothing. Certainly, absolutely nothing. And he doesn't really seem to have any information or ever read a book. And he's a pretty pathetic interviewer on everything else. So I don't have a really big opinion of him. I don't think he really was anything more than that's how he made money. He found something, and I don't think he gave any credit at all. His politics were boringly goo-goo level stuff, as well as his ridiculous goo-goo level religious beliefs. So the whole idea is this guy certainly is nothing to shout about. He got a big station, he got a lot of alternative information, and like all of it, it really just goes down to the flushable toilet, and you never hear from it again. There's no interest in what he does. He produced nothing of value. He didn't help anybody. He was involved, of course, in the Millennium Scare, because scares, of course, really do things. Earth changes, Earth chain maps. I think he sold tens of thousands of those from the people that offered that. He was selling a bogus Levitron, as anti-gravity. It's a magnet, Art. Did you know that? Did you know you have two magnets of different polarities? They push each other apart. This was the great thing that he was saying, how amazing and wonderful it was. Of course, he was paid to do that and probably made a fortune off of that. But all it was two magnets, and it shows you the kind of low credibility. This guy didn't have the courage to come out and say, look, hey, this is a cool, fun device. And magnetic in nature, and it looks like there's levitation. Instead, this is like anti-gravity. Yeah, I should know, because my brain is not attached to my body. So the whole idea is that this kind of bogus stuff that he perpetrated, including mentally retarded people that he put on as time travel reps, because he was told to. And he's been connected to a whole bunch of people that are suspicious in nature and was funded by one of the biggest government mouthpieces, allegedly, and that is Robert Bigelow, who started it all, etc. So, this is all part of the to understand what is actually going on with these people. But Art Bell was started by and funded by a person who is directly connected to the government and to all of the disinformation intelligent agencies, the Robert Bigelow Foundation. I mean, it's not too complicated. He hires those people, he works with them, he's getting money from it, he's involved with NASA. I mean, all these things are what's going on. And he certainly, Bigelow, is not an outspoken person. As a matter of fact, he hides. He doesn't want any kind of interviews. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. And I believe the only time he's only been interviewed a few times, very briefly. And when Jesse Ventura talked with him in a hallway somewhere, because he kind of, that's called, combat journalism, where you jump out in front. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. What about this? He spoke a few words, and that was it, and refused to go on any further talk shows or do anything else. So, it's the same story. If this guy was really on somebody's team, if he really was interested, he would do it. He has billions of dollars, and he's done research and other things. So, well, isn't that great? Well, all of it goes into the government hands. He's just working for the governments for as far as I can see. I allege all of that, where it all goes, what 100% is. Certainly, he has nothing to show the general public and refuses to talk about things. He believes 100% that aliens are here and everything else. He owns Skywalker Ranch, where all this phenomena supposedly happened. We don't even have one photo of it. He refuses to talk about it. You can't get onto his property. He won't do anything else. But I'll tell you who gets on his property. General Alexander gets there. He's always researching. So the whole idea is that, all the people there that could possibly do it, the same mouthpiece that came out with Jacques Voulet and wrote the introduction to his book, that there ain't no aliens. Yet everybody that John Alexander hangs around are all heavily involved in UFO research and have all verified through remote viewing and other things the presence of extraterrestrials in general and specifically on planet Earth. So, the real story behind Art Bell is that he was funded by a known government disinformation agent, allegedly, Robert Bigelow. And that, people, is really the rest of the story. Now remember, there is no reality until the manifesting scientist creates it. Until later.